To the Point with Michael Williams.
Good morning. Our congressional candidate interview series continues. I talked early in the week with Republican Congressman Brian Mast, the incumbent in Congressional District 21, covering part of the Treasure Coast and Palm Beach County. A note, last week we talked with Mast's Democratic opponent, Thomas Whitcomb.
For me, always begins number one locally, and then of course nationally. My brothers and sisters in arms, veterans, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, Space Force. Then there's the stuff that people are telling me constantly, keeping them up at night. Is gas $2.50, $3.50, $4.50, $5.50 a gallon? Are there grocery bills every week? $1.50, $2.50, $3.50, $4.50 a week? These are the things that are keeping people up at night. Inflation.
Of course, gas has come down a good bit. We're all seeing that, but over the arc of the last few years, you're speaking about the impacts that it has taken over the last several years.
That's right. Energy policy, number one biggest driver for inflation. I always tell people, no such thing as farm to table. It's farm to truck to table. It's manufacturing to truck to store where it goes, right? There's a truck in the middle of everything. And if you make energy less affordable or unaffordable, then you're making life more expensive for everybody.
Let's talk locally again for a moment. Let's talk environment. You were out there front and center with the big debate about Jonathan Dickinson State Park, the effort to put golf courses there. Everybody turned around and said, bad idea. Your opponent says you came late to that developers are your friends, and that he's the guy to turn to on environmental issues. Speak to the criticism and to the environmental issues locally that you continue to press on. First to the criticism, then to your overview of where we are and some of the big issues.
I would say hopefully everybody around this area is my friends. I work with everybody. I hear from everybody. And, you know, if anybody reaches out to the office, we try to help them. Nobody ever reached out for any help on developing Jonathan Dickinson State Park from my office or at any level whatsoever. But as soon as we heard about this as an issue, developed a plan of attack to say, how do we defeat this? The plan of attack was to say, okay, there's a board of people in the state. It's a state level issue that are going to look at this. They're going to cast a vote on it. None of them were planning on hearing from us. Let's make sure they hear from all of us. Here's their email addresses. Everybody go out there and reach out. And the fact of the matter is, I could have stood on that road 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It wouldn't have changed a thing. What changed everything is the whole community coming out saying, we don't want this. We might be a community that likes golf, but we don't want our state park paved over for a parking lot or a clubhouse or anything else. And that's what mattered in the fight, is the whole community coming out to change the tone.
You've been a voice on the EAA reservoir, on toxic algae, on a variety of different issues impacting our waterways. Speak to the ongoing need there. Speak to your opponent, Mr. Whitcomb's criticism, yes, but he has agriculture that backs him in his campaign. Criticism first, then speak to kind of the arc of what you've done and what you continue to do, and see as vital to your constituents who are worried all the time about water and water quality there.
I laughed a little bit when I saw the interview from this past weekend, because the fact of the matter is, I don't think most of the people in the sugar industry would dump a bucket of water on me if I were on fire. And that's the back and forth that we have, because I'm always taking them to task and trying to move things forward for our waterways. And I think it was a good example when I saw that interview of just not knowing the issues. I was hit for saying, well, there's discharges coming into the St. Lucie right now. The fact of the matter is, that's actually a really good success example, because the water coming into the coastal estuary right now is coming out of a reservoir that we've worked to fund and build. Why did we work to fund and build the C-44? So that you wouldn't have just this nutrient-laden water going out of there. It would be stored, it would be cleaned, and then it would go to the coastal estuary. That's a success case.
What more needs to be done environmentally? What are you keeping your eye on, should you be reelected, that you think needs to continue to push us toward, if there's not a finish line environmentally, at least to next steps? We have the new lake operating schedule. We're working on issues south with the reservoir. That's a ways away. To your constituents, what can you say to them about continuing to push? Because we have to get these things funded too, and that takes a lot of effort up in Congress.
So I was going to say, the lake management schedule, I wrote the bill for that, wrote the law for that. We just had that implemented in the last couple months. That was a huge deal, and it will be every summer going forward. Next big thing that we have been working on, also I wrote the bill for it, the EAA reservoir, designed to store water, clean water, convey water south to the Florida Everglades where it belongs, instead of to our coastal estuaries where it doesn't belong. We have it authorized, we have it permitted, we have it in part funded. That funding process goes year over year. You don't get all of the funding in just one tranche, but it's continuing to get that funding for it and get it over the line.
Congressman Mast, the insurance crisis, it doesn't directly tie into the congressional duties you have, but your opponent said Congress has a unique ability to nationalize the cost of these disasters so that we recover more quickly. Nationalization, some other academics say if there is room for that, it should be temporary, not permanent. Your thought, what help can you give from where you sit
Yeah, so
people on the insurance crisis. And what about this notion of nationalizing the cost of it, at least catastrophic insurance?
That's always the leftist idea. If there's an issue, let's nationalize it. Let's socialize what's going on here. We have several examples of nationalized insurance program, Obamacare being one of them, but we have one in the housing market. That's national flood insurance. The National Flood Insurance Program only insures about 5 million people across the country, but it's still tens of billions of dollars in debt because it doesn't bring in nearly enough money. So Congress has to continually bail out the program. You look at where the federal government goes and tries to help people, and it takes months, if not years, whether you're talking about housing and urban development money after a storm, or whether you're talking about the FEMA money that come in, often takes months to get through. Let's go to the solution, right? Let's go to the solution side of it. For me, state level, they've addressed the most important driver of what's taking place with this. You have in the state of Florida, roughly 9% of home insurance claims come out of the state of Florida. That's not as much as what most people think. They'd think it'd be way higher with hurricanes and things like that. But what we do have, where the chart goes hyperbolic, is we have 79% of home insurance lawsuits come out of the state of Florida, most of them being fraudulent. And the state is doing a good job in trying to tackle that with legislation, and I think that'll make a big difference.
So continued, from your estimation, private market lead the way with efforts to make sure that we put up guardrails against the kind of things you just talked about.
It's not just to say private market leads the way, right? You get that fraudulent lawsuit out of the system in the state of Florida, you get more private insurers to come back in. But let's say another danger as well is this. If you let the federal government control your home insurance, they control what's in your house. They control, okay, if you rebuild in the state of Florida, do you have to build your house up on stilts because this percentage of your house was destroyed? Are you allowed to have a gas stove in your house, which is we know something they've had an appetite to do? Do you have to have these certain Energy Star appliances, or can you have this washer, this dryer, this whatever in there? Federal government controls it. They're going to control a lot more than just the price.
Talking in insurance, health insurance, want to turn to that a little bit more. It's raising as an issue right now. The Democrats argue if the former president, we have Republicans leading the way in Congress, will get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Do you want to see the Affordable Care Act stay or go?
Look, there's a lot of problems with the Affordable Care Act. I think at this point it is here. One of the big things that's going to be addressed in Congress is what goes on with the subsidies related to the Affordable Care Act. Again, it's in place, but it still doesn't by any means. People don't have affordable insurance, but so much of that is still subsidized by the taxpayer. That has to be looked at in Congress upcoming. Looks like you have a question.
I hear you saying keep it, but we need again to look at how we're spending money within that program. So is that fair?
You have to. If the subsidies for Obamacare do not continue, what people are going to see for their already moving hyperbolic insurance rates will go exponentially beyond that. So it has to take place.
I've asked every congressional candidate, Democrat and Republican, who's come here to talk with me about this issue. The national debt, $35 trillion and climbing, entitlements, Social Security and Medicare, the big drivers there. We're already talking about perhaps a 20 to 25% cut in Social Security by 2032. How do we deal with the debt, and what do we have to do to reform entitlements, since they're the bigger driver of that debt? When you have a lot of elderly constituents, it's a huge issue to people, and it's going to affect real pocketbooks. What do you say?
You have no changes to the program, you doom the program. You have to be willing to adjust the program, but you have to say rule number one. Rule number one is anybody currently on Social Security and Medicare, or within that pocket of getting close to being on Social Security and Medicare, don't change a thing. You and I have had this conversation before over the years. People my age, people younger, start graduating that age. So maybe I start collecting it at 66 instead of 65. A couple years down the line, they collect it at 67, then 68, then 69, then 70. You graduate that, you save that program. The other thing you do, as sometimes people say, listen, you can't just cut your way to profitability. You have to have more resources coming into the economy, more people at work, more dollars going into Social Security and Medicare per the tax that's paid for that. That's the other way that you save it.
So many issues we can cover, but I want to give you a chance to cover a few more. Democracy. Your opponent said, quote, I'm running to strengthen our institutions. My opponent, I'm quoting here from Mr. Whitcomb, undermines democracy and promotes conspiracy theories of election fraud. Speak to that.
There was very serious election fraud, and it continues to persist to this day. When you look at the way so much of the media look to just say, okay, Facebook, you're going to cover up what was true about the COVID crisis. Or whether you say CIA agents, you're going to write 50 different letters saying the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, which it absolutely wasn't. Whether you say the whole argument for 4+ years of Russian collusion for President Trump and the media putting that narrative forward, there was no Russian collusion. It was in fact put in by the Democrat National Committee. I could give 100 other examples from here to there about that, but there was every effort to go out there and undermine that free electoral process.
Do you trust in 2024 that we'll have a election that we can have faith in, and one that will be a peaceful transfer of power whichever way it goes?
I think there'll be a peaceful transfer of power. Can you have faith in a lot of the things going on right now? There's places that you literally can't, and that's not a conspiracy theory. We had in the House of Representatives, we're dealing right now with a continuing resolution funding the government at the end of this month. What we tried to attach to that funding of the government is to say, add something called the SAVE Act. What would the SAVE Act do? It says very specifically, if you're going to vote in a federal election, because we deal with the federal side of it, then you have to have this proof of citizenship when you register. Democrats wouldn't vote for that. And what's some of the big drivers of not wanting to vote for that? You have state after state where people can go out there and now and register, get a driver's license in a state, even though they're an illegal immigrant. That's what you need to become a voter, is a state driver's license. If you're not checking their citizenship, you're allowing for election fraud.
Congressman, want to talk Ukraine? Your opponent says, I would have voted for aid. He voted against it, for continued aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, there's a number of good reasons to not vote for aid for Ukraine. Number one, we were quite literally funding their pensions. So as we talk about Social Security as an issue being funded here in America, many of the billions of dollars that we were sending to Ukraine were paying the retirement salaries of people in Ukraine, in Ukrainian government. Let me give you a GDP example. GDP, the economy of the United States of America, roughly $25 trillion. EU, roughly $20 trillion. So we're pretty close to economies of scale. In this last funding tranche, as an example, they wanted us to fund more than Europe was doing, 60 to 65 billion. Europe was doing 50 to 55 billion. So they wanted us to do more. While Europe was doing it, they said they're going to do theirs, dole it out over the course of 3, 4, 5 years. They wanted America to dump our billions on them immediately. I think Europe should probably be doing more than America.
Reproductive rights, gun rights. He has talked about universal background checks. Speak briefly to that, to the reproductive right issue we've got a movement for in Florida.
Yeah, look, I've been a proponent of saying I've taken life, evil life. I've had 4 of the most innocent lives that I know. My wife had the 4, but you know, I get to be a part of that.
Big family.
And big family. Yeah. I believe in protecting life, and I'm glad that this issue came back down to the states, that Roe was overturned. I think we shouldn't have to deal with it in the U.S. House of Representatives, but I'm happy to see each state dealing with it. I will not be voting to, I will not be voting in that way. So.
2018, New York Times, you, after Parkland, you said, listen, I've been in combat. We don't need assault-style weapons. Do you still hold that view?
No, I don't.
Why not?
So I look at everything going on around the country, the areas of our country that have been taken over by millions of illegal immigrants, the assaults that take place. You look at the places where there've literally been cities that have been taken over. They call them autonomous zones in different areas, the assault on our police officers. I could give a number of examples to say, I think it's very important that we recognize, and you and I have discussed the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia for the purpose of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Right. I think the protections are there with the National Instant Criminal Background Check, the National Firearms Program that exists for fully automatic weapons, and the age that exists for somebody purchasing, which should not be more than somebody that's in the military.
You and I always in conversation saying there's so much more we could talk about, but I do want to give you a last minute or so, minute 15 or so, because I know there's so many crucial issues. You talked about veterans. We've covered a little bit of the waterfront. What's your closing statement, and what have I not brought up that you think is especially pertinent as you make your case to the voters as election season's upon us?
We touched on inflation as a big issue that matters to every single family out there. It's disposable income. The number one thing that we can do at the federal side is let you do more with more and ask government to do more with less. Let you keep more of your money. We want to extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act provisions. That's coming up in Congress. We want to extend those.
I want to give you a chance.
Yeah, so let's touch on immigration, right? We see our border being flooded by people coming across illegally, and this is another place where we can save your dollars because you're paying for their transportation, you're paying for their legal fees, you're paying for their food, their lodging, their health care, everything else. Let's make sure we go back to a Remain in Mexico policy. Let's make sure we go back to completing anything that's not complete along that southern border wall. And those are 2 very distinct differences between the left and the right when it comes to politics.
Final 30 seconds, your closing argument for re-election.
You know, it's just simply to say thank you to the community. It's been an honor to be your representative. It's an honor every single day. But being in the fight is only successful because I get to stand shoulder to shoulder with you all, just like Jonathan Dickinson State Park. The success was in everybody that I got to be shoulder to shoulder with. We don't always agree on every single thing, but we get out in the fight together as a community, and I just thank the community for letting me be a part of it.
The Roundtable next with Brian Crowley.